Hello, I don't do cars, full stop. Now, I've got a Ford C-Max 2009, it's 15 years old, and the bonnet lock has failed, and it's failed with the bonnet down, that's the hood down in the closed position. To remove the lock mechanism you need to have the bonnet open, and it's a bit of a job otherwise, and I will run into how I did that later on in the video. Had I understood how the locks functioned in the first place, properly functioned, I was almost there, but if I'd have understood it, I would have saved myself an awful lot of work, and that work was sort of like breaking the last bits of plastic and grinding them away to get at the lock itself, not the lock, but the lock catch. We're going to look at a couple of locks first, both of them are aftermarket ones that I've bought, and go through a few of the pros and cons and a little bit of how they work, and we'll also probably look at the one that I've butchered out, but we'll do that as we go along. Right, this is the first lock we're going to look at. It's an aftermarket part that closely resembles the one that came out, and it's this little cross piece here that fits into the lock catch that we need to, that holds the bonnet closed, and you can hopefully see that it turns that way and that way with a key. Now, interestingly, you're going to find that as you pull this, twist the whole lock mechanism that's along the lock itself on this cable connection shaft. If you turn it, you will notice, I don't know, hopefully you'll notice that this piece will probably go in like so. Well, when it's in the latch mechanism, it's held there, and the other end pulls away and it disengages a female socket on that's attached to the cable shaft. Let me see if I can show you on me. Here's the broken one that came out, and this is, so it disengages that. And I think that that's a security measure to stop people breaking in by twisting the outer of the cable, connecting cable, and it will disengage. Now that is a bit of a pain. It does it because this is the, here's some of the bits that sort of hopefully you can let me see it. It's maybe out of focus, if it is, my apologies, I can't really tell, but you'll see these are the things that ride up against as you sort of inside there, and they're clamped around the cable. That's clamped around the cable like so, and as I said before, sort of clamped around there inside of this bit. Here's another lock mechanism which has got a sort of a sliding shaft that you can sort of goes in and out there, and lock again, turns this bit. It's a very much cheaper, sort of fragile looking replacement part, but it does look a lot easier to fiddle about with if you the same thing happens to you again, a lot easier than having a connecting cable between the locks. But again, there is an element of security that you lose by making it simpler to get at, and I don't know which one I would prefer to fit. Personally, if it's going to bust, I'd like to fit this one. If there's no chance of it ever busting again, I'd prefer to fit the cable one. But let me, and really 15 years in the life of a 15 years in the life of one of these is pretty good going. I won't have the car in another 15 years. I'll be long gone. Okay, I ended up butchering the lock mechanism apart to get access in there. and I had no need in this instance. Now, not all lock failures are going to be the same, but had I followed a sort of a systematic approach to this, I would have been a lot happier. I wouldn't have had to have busted all that. Now, the first obstacle getting this out is obviously removing the radiator grille. And the radiator grille is attached to a sort of a windshield. They call it a wind shield, I think. It goes like, fits in there like so, and that fits over the top and clips onto a cross member at the back. You have 6 scrivets to get out. There's one there, one here, one there. That's 3, 4. Let's move the camera. 5 and 6. Now, with the hood locked down closed, it's impossible to get at them. A lot of people recommend that you take out the 2 end ones up there, and the other one up here I just showed you. Trying to do that, you're just going to make a mess of the job, because they tell you to pull this out and you're going to wreck this bit, you're going to break things, and it's a sort of a hammer to crack a nut. Now, so how do you do it? First of all, let's take all this apart, out of the way, and show you why you no need to do that. Down below, I've taken off the splash guard that goes underneath, and that allows plenty of access to come sort of get your hand up behind there to look at things. Now, I used 2 tools to take the splash guard off, and let me get them. Here's the 2 tools I used to take the splash guard off. That's a TX30, as you can see, and just a sort of a posi drive screwdriver. Closely, if you look through these fixing holes, you can see daylight, and you can get at the back of the scrivets using sort of a couple of other tools. I'll just get them out. Well, here are the tools I used. This is a 5mm bit of old bracing rod I'd lying around, and a chisel and a mallet. And laying on my back underneath, I first cut off the scrivets I could actually get access to. I cut the back of the plastic with the chisel, and then try to run the chisel down and push one leg of the plastic rivet to one side, and then coming from the end, coming through this end because it's nice and square, push the rivet out like so, by tapping with and using a hammer to tap at the bottom, because you'll never get anything else up there. Now, the first 4, that's this one, that one, that one, and this one. Access to them are fairly good. So the 4 starting on the left hand side, as you're looking at the car, as we're standing here looking at the car from the left hand side, the first 4 I had a sort of a direct upright access to them. However, the last 2 proved difficult, and that's this one and that one. There's not really a direct access to these rivets, and I did try the under bonnet lark of prising about underneath. Well, let's see, let's come over here a bit. I did try the under bonnet sort of messing about underneath here, and the only thing I can honestly say is you're going to damage your car if you're going to do that. But I managed eventually to come in from underneath and slightly askew from the side, at which point I did think about making a square rod and sort of about the same diameter, and making a chisel point on there to sort of split the end of the rivet to make my job a little bit easier. But it did come out without having to do that, but I was a bit lucky there, I think. All in all, getting to that point really is probably it's a question of how quick you work, and if you're a bang bang merchant you'll probably be there in about 10 minutes, but it took me about an hour. Bearing in mind I haven't touched a motor car for sort of something like 35 years. I hate them, and I wish I didn't have to do this sort of thing, but needs must. Now it's a question after that of getting the radiator away, because now we got, this is free because we've got all the connections away from it, got all the scrivets out, and this hope you can see clips in there and there. You can't really see what you're doing when it comes to this, and the catch side of the rivet is square there, so it needs to be rivet. The catch of this prong is needs to be sort of come up, so you can't see what you're doing from underneath. The lugs go in this portion here, and I'm working laying on my back with my arm reached up and feeling around. I felt that one, and I'm trying to release that one and tug the radiator grill, radiator grill out, and it frankly it didn't work. Had I known I was on the wrong lug and got to this one, I think I would have had better success. And if you do manage to get onto that one, is to pull it up, not down, because the lug is let's see if we can show it. Well, yeah, take it as red, I would say. No, get it around the right way and then you'll be happy. The catch is on there, so facing the catch is on the back there. The hook part of it's going down, so it needs to come up, so you need to pull that one up a bit, and it should be possible. However, I eventually gave it a tug, but before I did do that, what I did do was put my hands up there and put some grease, silicone grease, onto the lugs on both sides, on these lugs. And I just thought that might help it sort of pull out and slide out better. And I did that quite successfully without breaking anything on the radiator grill. Now when it comes to the air deflector, there are two lugs on this that clip. If you see somewhere where the base of this hammer is, over that part there, and if you're pulling and larking about with this one, as I was on this on this side, it looks like I've broken it off. Looks like, let's get in camera, looks like I've broken it off there. Now I can't find any of the bits that broke off there, and I'm quite upset, but equally well I'm not so sure it was me that broke it off, because I couldn't find any of the broken bits on the floor or in the engine bay anywhere. I'm a bit out. I may have done it, I may not have. Right, so remembering that your bonnet is still down and locked in position when you have your assembly here, and I'll talk about that separately. Probably on the bench because it'll be easier to demonstrate. On the aeroplane that is going over, you can forgive the noise because it happens to be a Spitfire, but that's an aside. I forgot one point worth mentioning, and once you've got your radiator grill free, it will still be connected to the lock mechanism which is in here, and I was able to release it quite easily, and hopefully you can see there are two clips there and there, and while I was underneath the car I managed to ease it out using my fingers and pulling on the lock mechanism at the same time, or pushing the, I think it was more like pushing the radiator away from the lock, because the lock mechanism will still be attached to because the lock mechanism will still be attached to this point here. I hope that helps clarify a few things. Again, you can try a little bit of silicone grease on here. I use silicone grease in preference to anything else because it will not damage the plastic. Once I got everything free, I did make one critical error that would have saved me buckets of time in grinding all of this away, and I'll cover that in detail on the table. Now here are the remnants of the one that I butchered out, and I'm quite sad to say that I've made a critical error, and had I not made that error I would have been able to probably have got this one out relatively easy. Now, one of the things you've got to bear in mind is that although the lock goes faulty, the fault may not be the same for everybody. So I'm only looking at one fault and repairing one fault, so my suggestions here only apply if that's a specific case. But if you go through it in a systematic way, then you'll probably only have to grind it out as a sort of a method of last resort. I cut back the outer of the cable sheath back to what I thought was the inner core, but it isn't. It's the springy part of the outer sheath, and that was my big mistake, and that's where I assumed wrong. Had I cut through this spring section, which I did later, you will see that there's the inner core. But this does, as soon as you cut through that cable, it does allow you the privilege to be able to sort of turn this barrel around. And if it's connected really well at this end, and it's the other end that's not turning, it will just turn, and you will pull it out, cable and everything. However, if it's this end that's loose of the connecting cable, and in my case it was, I was trying to twist it and see what would happen, and that's what happened. It just fell off. Had only I cut that, all I needed to have done was to put a mole wrench or something on there to hold the cable and twist it like so, and I could have undone the bonnet. Instead of that, I ended up with a sort of a fancy sort of, if I call it sort of a pendant drill, you'll probably not know what I mean, but it's a bit like a dentist drill really, so to gain access, and I ground away, and you'll see the dust later on in the video. But that's where I made my fatal mistake, not cutting through that. Now it's spring still, and not very many things touch this, and you'll be going, oh my, you know, what am I going to do? What should I use? What should I use? How can I cut through it? Well, I'm going to have a go cutting through this outer cable as I did in the first instance, and hopefully it'll work just the same. A lot of you would probably be tempted to use a sort of angle grinder with a cutting wheel on it or something like that, and not all of us have that luxury of having one. Now, surprisingly, I did it with this, with an old file I just found lying around that had enough tooth on it to sort of bite well enough to cut that. And I've got a fair few files in the workshop, but I think you'd agree with me, this one looked like it's well past its use by date and a bit of junk. The important part about it is that it's got a serrated edge on the side of it, as well as on the flat and on the sides, and that really is the key to this file, using this file. Some files of this nature have got smooth sides to them, and that won't be any use to you. The tang hasn't got a handle on it, so as I'm holding it, there's a good chance it'd slide into my hand and up. As I'm holding it, there's a good chance it would slide into my hand and up there, and that is something you definitely don't want. So I'm going to try and see whether I can stick a cork in a cork and sort of prevent that from happening. Now, here goes, let's see what happens. I don't know how long it's going to take. Could take 5 minutes or so. Could take even longer, especially if it don't work. I don't want to go through the thing, I want to go across it. But it's going to be difficult. Let's zoom in a bit and see if you can see what's going on. Where's the zoom button? If we can keep in focus. I don't know whether we'll keep in focus or not. And you're not going to see much, but the purpose of showing you this is to show you that it is possible, it is doable. I really ought to put my glasses on and see what's going on. Yeah, we're beginning to sort of grind it away with a file. Let me zoom in a bit and see if you want to look at it. As it was staying focus. There, we're going out of focus. There you go. You should be able to see where I'm beginning to file into the spring still. Not an easy job, and take your time. The only thing is you need a file that is going to work for you, and this one happened to work. There'll be a lot of files that don't work. The whole purpose of doing it like this is to show you how you can do it with the simplest of tools. And we're well into it now. Let's see. The big problem is you're filing a larger surface area, and as you start filing a larger surface area, the slower it goes. I'm going to try what I tried before and worked. Now let me zoom out a bit. I got to about this stage when I put a screwdriver. Now there's a big danger that you can sort of stab yourself here with a screwdriver, and hopefully I can get between it again. I found that sort of bending the cable sort of opens a gap in the spring. And hopefully, if I can get in there, as you can see, something's happening. I know that it's already out. The purpose of this demonstration is to show you it is possible to break it with just like that. But before I kill myself with the screwdriver, let's file some more. But first you don't succeed, carry on. And I'm quite pleased with the progress, it's almost there. I'll try. Perhaps that's too big a broad. I'm just going to go and get another screwdriver, and I'm going to leave it running because you'll think I'm showing, you know, faking it. Now, back again. Probably not going to be any advantage, but we'll see. Done. Right, come round, get under. I don't want to go yet. Carry on filing. Just imagine that one's not been, just imagine that that bit's not been done. But, I will say one thing, when I did it initially it was a lot easier than this. It would rather surprise me. Right, let's carry on going. We're through. We're actually filed all the way through. Okay. Now, if I'd got to that stage, there may have been an outside chance of you've got to sort of hold the outer cable steady and in as far as it goes, so that the end bit doesn't disengage in the lock latch part. And you may just be lucky enough to just twist this round like so, and that part of the mechanism will sort of undo. when I tried twisting this around, trying to find out what was wrong with it, it just fell off like that, and then I went, oh no, that's so simple. Right? But what if it was the other end of the cable, this end of the cable, that had come loose, and you were twisting it around again and you just ended up pulling out the cable? Well, that then gives you an opportunity to sort of slide sort of a thin sort of a screwdriver up the centre core and twist, get up to this part of it with a longish screwdriver and sort of try and twist from that point of view, and that would be your point. If that didn't work, then after that it'd be sort of butcher it out. But I hope that proves a point, that that's all you really need to cut through that. You don't need a whacking great angle grinder. Although it's probably a bit slower and a bit harder on your hands. See what I mean by sort of shoving a sort of a screwdriver up the shaft. But imagine going up that way to get to that part. It probably not worth me showing you on camera because it's sort of too, oh, I don't know, but we actually can pull it out. There we go. Let's zoom in a bit because there is something interesting. So what I would say is that if this cable was detached from this plastic bit here, you could understand what I mean by sort of jamming a screwdriver in the vacant hole and twisting. But it really is all dependent upon this still being engaged in the hex bit, not hex bit, it's still dependent upon this being engaged with the cross-section bit, the other end of this cross-section bit within the lock mechanism, to whether you're going to have any success in turning it or not. A little bit of patience and should pay off. Now that's been long, tedious, and you're probably absolutely bored rigid with me talking about this, but understanding your lock and getting it out, if I'd have done that, I'd have saved myself so much trouble. Let me quickly run through it again. These two tools, Torque X30, posi drive screwdriver to get the splash shield away, chisel, long rod, 5mm diameter, mallet to knock the scrivets out, a torch to help me see what I'm doing, and after that something to cut the cable of the lock, which I use a pair of these to nibble away at the outer, and I use a file to sort of cut through the inner spring. Now, although I didn't cut through the inner spring on this occasion, it cost me dearly, and if I had, life would have been so much easier because I would have been able to have just twisted this round and undone the lock. Sad, isn't it? And I won't go into the tool I use for grinding it away. Basically, it's a bit like a Dremel, but smaller. It's more like it's called a pendant drill. Looks more like what a dentist will use, and I use burrs to sort of grind the plastic away. I think they're a bit expensive and I wouldn't like to encourage you, but just with these few tools here you could be lucky and get away with it. Of course you're going to need a couple of ramps to get your car up high enough so that you can sort of crawl underneath it, and I used a couple of plastic ones that I bought, which I didn't really want to buy them, but I had to.